Hello, Flosstube friends, and welcome to my Flosstube number 3. My name is Jamie Wallen, and welcome. So today, as you can tell from our header, we are actually going to be doing some dyeing. I'm going to be dyeing some cross-stitch fabric for upcoming 9 new starts. So there we go. We are coming into winter, and I want to get going on some new starts because, again, ADHD, I like to move around. And again, I am not a monogamous stitcher. I like to do a lot of different ones at the same time and rotate. So I want to hand dye the next 9 to add to my already pretty big list of works in progress. So just to recap, today we're going to be dyeing 9 pieces of cross stitch canvas. And I will share what they are, and if I don't share what they are, I will definitely be sharing those on the new start video as each one gets started. So just know that that's coming. Let me see. I am using Procyon MX dyes. My favorite place to order my dyes is Pro Chemical and Dye Company. They are absolutely amazing, and they're wonderful to deal with. And you can call them and ask them questions, as long as, I always say, as long as you're not pestery about it. The other place that I buy my dyes occasionally, because they have a few colors that I really like, is Dharma Trading. So those are the 2 places typically that I'm buying my dyes. My fabric, the 9 pieces that I'm dyeing today, has all been washed and scoured so that all the sizing is out of them, and then they've been soaked in soda ash water. I am using, of course, the professional grade dyes. I typically am not a, I believe it's called Ritz dye person. I think that it's a great dye. I know a lot of people use it with wonderful success. I just tend to know this particular beast because this is what I've used to do my professional hand dyeing for selling for about 20 years now. So those are the things that I'm using. I have pre-mixed all of my dyes. We're going to go one by one, starting with fairly basic up to a few different effects that I'm going to be doing. And throughout time and upcoming Flosstube videos, I'll be doing some more of these. So, again, I like to dye my own background for the non-full coverage. So I typically don't do a lot of cross-stitching on white. And I typically don't buy colored cross-stitch fabric. I like to dye my own since it's something that I love to do. So if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. Now, the other thing that I want to say is I didn't go through my whole process of scouring the fabric and the chemicals that I used and how to mix the dye and how to soak the fabric and prepare it and how to do the chemical water to mix to dilute if I want to do lighter darks. If that's a video you would like me to do later on or a series of videos of that, let me know in comments, or as well, you can just email us. So there we go. All right, so let's get started. Again, I got 9 I'm going to do. And the very first one I'm going to do, and please forgive my sweating, it's very hot. We're in a dyeing dungeon where we have our quilting studio upstairs in the space that we rent. And then, of course, we have our dyeing studio down in this wonderful basement in an old church that they let us use where I can get dye everywhere and it's not a big deal. But it is hot because they just turned on the boiler system because we are going into winter. So, first one I'm going to do is my piece for Lady Justice. Now, let me see. Let me real quick. I am doing a conversion of Lady Justice. I'm not doing the original Mirabilia colorway, which we'll put right here. That's the original. And I love it, but it's not my jam. I am actually doing a conversion, and the conversion I am doing is this one pictured here. And that conversion can be located at Beverly's Cross Stitch Finishes. And I will actually put a link down in comments for that. It is an incredible conversion. Okay, so what I decided with that conversion, I was originally, if I would have stuck with the original color, I was going to do a nickel gray, but I decided with the one that I'm doing instead, I want to do a really deep red because of course, again, with this conversion, we've got blue, we've got those wonderful grays. She has that wonderful auburnish hair with brown, and I think that a beautiful red background for Lady Justice would be incredible. So that's what we're going to go with. I have my dye mixed. I did all my dye mixing last night so that way the dyes would have a chance to kind of settle. I will give it a little shake. Whenever you're dealing with these dyes, I want to give it just a little bit of shake so that way any of the dyes that are in the bottom are there. Now, let's go down to the pan. I've got this in the pan. I have got a little bit of blue here accidentally. I had accidentally grabbed some of my jugs for some of the upcoming ones that were dyeing here, and some of it had blue. I didn't realize there was color on the outside of the jugs. That's important to know because when you're dyeing, you want to make sure to keep the section as you're dyeing pristine, and you don't want anything to violate what you're working on. But I also know that that deep red is going to cover that blue. It's not going to be an issue. So what I'm going to start with is, this one's a no-brainer. This particular piece is going to be that deep, wonderful red. And I'm going to pour a nice amount in there. And I'm using a solo cup. Looks like I got a little bit over a cup. That's probably more than I need, but I don't care. You know, I buy the powdered dyes all the time. I have tons of powdered dye. It's no big deal. This one's going to go deep, so I'm not really concerned with using too much dye. You know, if you're going to do a lot of dyeing, and I do a ton of dyeing, waste is not a big deal. As a matter of fact, let me kind of show you. I will insert a picture here. Of all of the dyes that I always keep mixed up on the ready down here in the dye studio. They last about a month or two depending on the temperature. They'll probably last a little less long as winter in the boiler system down here takes place. You want to try to keep it in a cool, dry place. So as you see, what I did with this particular piece is I simply poured the dye on. I'm putting it throughout. Oh, and of course my nose is itching. So now I probably have a red face, that's fine. And I covered it, and I want to check both sides. Both sides look good. One of the things that I do not like, and some people like unless I'm doing a cloudy sky, is anything white left in there. White is not my friend. I don't do white. Now, I'm not wringing this out heavily. I'm just wringing it out a little bit. And that is a nice, deep red. What I'm going to do now, I've got my little bucket that I keep down on the floor. And with that, I'm going to rinse my hands so I get some of the main color off of there. Wipe my hands. I'm going to double bag. What I find is when I dye, this will set for about 2 to 3 days. And as you will see, I will take you through once I come back in 2 to 3 days. We will also take you through the rinsing process. The rinsing process for me, once we start rinsing this, okay, so I've got my bag. I'm going to grab a hold of that. I'm going to close it, and I'm going to go ahead and seal it. Because what I find is that I like to keep that fabric in that dye moist. It's one of the reasons also that I like using a bit of urea in the water that I mix with the powdered dye. I always refer to the urea as a hand lotion for fabric. It keeps it moist. It keeps it open and receptive to accepting as much dye as possible. So I'm double bagging this, and I'll set it aside. Now back on point with what I was talking about. So what I will do is I will, in the 2 to 3 days that I set, let the dye set, and I'm doing 2 to 3 days simply because I know that'll be the next day that I can get back down here because I'll be busy until then. And typically all you have to wait is about 6 to 8 hours. Some people would say 3, but you can wait 6 to 8 hours to start your rinsing process. In my 2 to 3 days, what I'm going to do is after 2 to 3 days, I'll come down and I'll start the rinsing process. We will film that as well. So that way you'll see what I like to do when I do the rinsing process is I will rinse it out real good in hot water to get rid of all the soda ash and the main chemical and any of the excess dye, because cotton will not accept all the dye. Like, for example, when you do wool, it pretty much sucks up all the dye, and as you rinse it, there's nothing that comes out. The wool accepts everything. With cotton or natural fibers, typically what happens is you're gonna have some vagrant colors that are going to just be rinsed out. So you want to go ahead and you want to rinse that. Now what I'll do after the first rinse is I will then put it in a bucket of hot water with Dawn dishwashing liquid. That's the best thing. Um, and what I'll do is I will let that set for about 12 hours, and I'll keep doing 12-hour flips. So I'll rinse, wring, repeat, rinse, wring, repeat until the water is pretty much clear. Because again, I'm using cotton floss most of the time. And because of that, I don't want any of the dye from my fabric to transfer to my cotton floss, or God forbid, when I do the washing, because a lot of times when people finish a cross stitch, they want to go ahead and they want to run it through a hand wash real quick and then block it and get it ready for finishing. And I want to make sure that all of my excess dye is out so that way, when or if, God forbid, something spills on my piece, I go to rinse it or wash it by hand, I'm not going to end up with a mess, and it will absorb into the cotton floss and I've ruined a piece. So that's why I want to make sure myself to rinse everything thoroughly. I'm big on the thorough rinsing. So we have finished that particular piece. Now we're going to move on to the next piece. Be right back. Okay, so our next piece is going to be, and I will not pronounce this properly, Nimuë Fox the Red, which is pictured here. And I love that. I think it's very, very cool. Now, on that one, I've decided that I want to go a little deeper with the background. I want to go with a little bit more of an avocado deep dark down by the ground. That'll kind of bleed up, and then a little bit more of a brighter green up near the top. Because in my opinion, it's kind of like the foxes walking through the woods with the wood sprite riding it. And so I want that, and I want there to be kind of some sunlight. Now I'm going to give that a shot. We'll see how that goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some yellow. So I've got yellow, I've got avocado, and I've got bright green. The very first thing I'm going to lay down, if we go down, is some yellow. And I'm simply going to just kind of put some yellow up here towards the top. Not a ton. And I'm going to kind of brush that in. And the reason I'm doing that is for the highlight up in the sky. I'm going to throw in some of the bright green on top of that. And I'm simply going to roll that, work it through, and now down toward the bottom is where I will put the dark avocado. Okay, yeah, I like that. So you can see how it's got that effect of the darker ground, a little bit of the deeper up through there. But what I want to do is I am just very quickly going to do this. Push, release, and what that did, and what I want that to do, is I want it to be a little bit more of a gentle blend here up to that other green. Now I'm going to roll it. And I'll set that there for a second. Rinse my hands. Get myself first bag. Now with this one, I'm going to set that aside. Get some down there in that bottom part. Okay. And because I don't want to just wad it, I want to keep that separated like that. I am now going to roll that up in the first bag. And then shove it into the second one. So 2 is done. And we'll come back and we'll start on number 3. Okay, so my next one is going to be for, and I know I will not get this name right, Princess Elana or Elania. I'm not sure which one it is. And of course, it's a Mirabilia. Very popular one. I know I've seen this done a ton of times here on YouTube. So that's one that I've liked. I enjoy the colors. I like all that stuff. So what I want to take you down is if we go down to the table, I have a partial dye master book here. So you can see for each color, I have a gradient down 1 up to 8. So these 2 are 1 from dark darkest, sorry about the glare, to light lightest. And for the Princess Elania, I was going to do lilac, but then what I found instead, let me find it, I liked a really light version of, give me just a second here, come on, there we go, blue violet. So here's the dark blue violet, let me get that out of the glare, dark down, and then here, you kind of see, let me tip that a little bit, get that glare off of here. This lightest of the blue violet is the color that I like for the black ground of this particular piece. So I'm going to go ahead, and I know that I mixed it to the dark. So now I'm going to water it down and do a little bit of testing to get it to be what I want. Let me get my... Okay, so for Princess Ilana, that's what I'll call it for now. I'm going to go with, of course, my blue violet, and we're going to lighten it. Now I'm using a real deep blue violet to start with, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dilute that because I want to make sure that I don't take it too dark. So I put that there. Now you can either just add water. What I mix is a chemical water that is urea and water. Urea is a fertilizer, but it also does a great job with this sort of thing. Okay, so now I want to test it. So I just have a piece of scrap cotton fabric. I'm going to put a little bit in there, a little bit. mush it around. Now, whenever something is wet that you're dyeing, it's going to show up darker than what it actually is when it's rinsed and dried. So here, of course, and colors are not going to read. That reads really blue, but what it actually is, it's more of the lighter blue-violet. Now, that's still pretty dark. So in my opinion, I have not diluted it enough. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to put a third in there again. I'm going to set this out of my way, out of my way. Where is out of my way? There it is. Grab some more urea. Grab a spoon. Mix that up. I know this can be dumped back in because it's still pretty dark to my original. Now, the one thing with these dyes that you kind of want to know is that if you are using soda ash in anything, you never want anything soda ash to get near dyes that you're going to be saving later. So if you, like a lot of people will take the leftover in the bottom of the pan and dump it back into the master dye jug. Don't do that because the soda ash is going to kill the dye. So got another piece of fabric here. I'm looking, I'm testing to see what I have. We want to top down on that. Okay, that is a lot lighter. Again, that is showing up extremely blue. It is not blue. It's actually almost a lilac, but it's got a little bit of blue violet and lilac. And as I look at this, I like that dilution. I'm going to take it over next to my piece. And what I feel is that that's pretty good, right? But it's not perfect. So, but it's close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half again instead of a third, set that aside, get this out of the way, get myself a little more urea. You know, a lot of people aren't worried about getting it exact, and frankly, I'm not worried about getting it exact, but I want it close. You know what I mean? Our canvas for cross stitching is not so cheap. And I don't mind having stash, and trust me, I have a lot. In fact, I'm probably going to do a little bit of a, down the road, here is my hand dye stash. But these are for specific projects. So now I'm going to go ahead and check that. Ta-da! Yeah, I'm there. So this is a nice and light. Now see, now that shows up a little more lilac-y. Lilac-y, is that where, oh, it is now. So a little more lilac, and it's a nice light color. I'm going to take it over, look at the book. Yep, I likey. So give it another stir, set it aside, wipe up any excess darky darks. Find my piece. Oh, Okay, Princess Elania. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to spread that out. Take my diluted. Put it on there. And just for grins and giggles, I'm going to dip my fingers, not in the full strength one, but in the one that's just a wee bit darker. Put a little bit there, a little bit there. Bit there. Okay. Why did I do that? Because on this one, I think I'd like a little bit of mellow marbling. Okay. Press that. And again, I know on the camera it's showing up as blue because as everybody knows, it's watched any floss tubes where they're showing stuff and things. That's just the nature of the cameras with some of these amazing colors. Now that's my light again. I wanted to put a little bit extra of that diluted to kind of mellow out that marbling just a little. Okay, so now I don't have any white. I've got some nice marbling there. I think that looks perfect. I'm gonna do that. And what I want to do, because with this particular cross stitch, if I were to wad it up like that, you're going to get some of the crease lines. What I want to do instead with this is more of a gentle roll, so it doesn't get a ton of those crease lines in there. I'll kind of roll that up like that. Get my bag. And so for this edition, we're going to do one more piece, and then what we'll do is we will make this a part 2 for the next one. Okay, I want to tie and seal it. Tie and seal it, and we'll be right back for the next one. Okay, so the last one we're going to dye for this section is another Nimuë, which is Pancakes. And I love that one, as you can see pictured here. I have to say, on this one, I absolutely love that gray background. Now, grays are odd. Um, there are so many different grays, and I want something cool and neutral, just like in the picture. And I want something a little more solid. It might have a little bit of marbling in it, but I don't want a whole lot. So I am going to use a dye from Procam called Neutral Gray. And I would say there's probably about 10 different grays to choose from the different companies. And of course you can go from dark to light, just like I showed earlier in the dye book that's been created. So with this particular neutral gray, I want to go very, very light. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to dilute it the same way. So I'm going to put, because I don't want it to be too dark, I'm just going to put a little bit. I always tend to go a little too dark. That's my thing right there. So I'm going to put a little bit of the gray. I'm going to put a nice amount of the urea. Stir it up. Stir it up. Just like the song says. Okay, I'm going to get rid of some of that excess there. Stick that in. Okay. And that is a strong neutral, even watered down. So let's go top down. That's pretty dark, and it's a lot darker again on the screen than what we see in front of my eyes here. So I'm just going to look. Yep, way too dark. So I'm going to take that and dilute it again. I tend to make extremely strong dyes to work from, just because I don't like washed out colors for the quilting fabric, and so it's a shift for me occasionally to get the right tone when I'm dyeing the cross stitch fabric, the canvas. Okay, urea. Now see, that's a real mellow. That's just a little tint of the gray. And I like that. That being said, just a dab. Okay, 2 dabs. And just for my own, I can dunk that in since I just dunked it. And it's got a nice tone. So I'm liking that. Okay, so there we go. I'm all diluted. Get up any of that excess. Grab my canvas. And we'll talk about the counts and all of that sort of thing when I actually as I start working through my new starts and getting them started. Right now I'm just referring to them as my canvas. So now, pour some on there. That's pretty well plenty, I believe. Yeah, that's nice. I'm looking over at the color that I chose on the scale, 1 to 8, and I like that. Unlike the one before this, I'm not gonna darken it or add any splotchiness. I really like that clean look for this one. When I see some of the samples that have been done, I like that. So on this one, I'm definitely going to roll it to avoid any stuff and things. Okay, double bag that. Okay, so we have our first 4 done. And so what we'll do now is part 2 will be our next 5. And then we will do a part 3, and the part 3 will be the rinsing and the final reveal.